We're coming on the air tonight with devastating new details just into us on that deadly school shooting in Georgia, killing 2 students and 2 teachers, we've just learned. What we now know about the victims, the investigation, and why the teenage shooter will be tried as an adult. All of this coming into us just minutes ago. Plus, the new plan on what voters say is the most important issue to them. Kamala Harris talking the economy with a new edge in new polls. How she's trying to convince younger folks that, yes, they actually can afford a mortgage. Then, can you really just declare that Christmas will now be in October? Well, the leader of Venezuela just did in a bizarre and brazen political play. So how does that work? We'll explain. And the controversial collaboration making headlines in Hollywood and beyond. How Katy Perry's defending her decision to work with one of the most polarizing producers in the biz. Plus, the new helmets the NFL's rolling out to try to cut back on head injuries. But will players actually wear them? Our Sam Brock investigates as football season kicks off later in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie, and we begin tonight with those new details from Georgia and the school shooting east of Atlanta. 4 people dead. We are now learning they are 2 students and 2 teachers, according to police. A number of others hurt. And a teenage suspect now in custody. As we're coming on the air, we are just learning in the last couple of minutes that the suspect was, in fact, a student at the school. This person will be charged with murder and tried as an adult. School is closed right now. It's going to stay closed for a few more days. Here's what else we know. Police and first responders were on the scene at Appalachia High School after reports of an active shooter and the school going into lockdown. All other schools in the area ended up in lockdown, too. And then this scene, you're looking at it about an hour later. You see this chopper video? These are the students gathered on the football field, ready to be released to their parents. A medical chopper, airlifting, you see it here, airlifting 1 patient from the scene. We know that this is a high school with about 2,000 students. They're barely a month into the school year. School is just starting. It's all happening about an hour outside Atlanta. And the mayor there says they're beefing up security at other schools because of this. The Georgia governor is directing all available state resources here. And here in Washington, President Biden has been briefed, saying in part in a statement that ending this gun violence epidemic is personal to me. We've got team coverage tonight with Tom Winter standing by, but I want to start with Priya Sridhar in Georgia. You are there on the scene, and while we just got some new answers from law enforcement, there's still a number of questions that are going to be critical here moving forward. Walk us through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have a little bit of a better sense of the timeline of the events, exactly how everything unfolded. The Barrow County Sheriff telling us that they received those first calls about a potential active shooter around 10:20 this morning, and that law enforcement officials from several different agencies, both local, state, and national, were able to get on the scene within minutes, and that suspect who you just mentioned, a 14-year-old boy who was a student at this school, was able to be apprehended by a school resource officer who was also harmed. Now, the authorities who just briefed us said that they felt that it was evident after speaking to the school resource officer that the suspect knew that if they didn't surrender, that they would have been involved in an officer-involved shooting. Now, there's still a lot of questions at this hour, including what a potential motive could be. We don't know if there was any connection between this student and the teachers who he shot and also those additional students. We also don't know too much information at this point about those other 9 victims who, some of them, as you mentioned, were airlifted out of here. We do know that one was taken to Grady Hospital in Atlanta, but I can tell you that this has been an incredibly frantic and emotional day for the families of these students. As you mentioned, there's about 1,800 students who go to this high school. Many of them went to the middle school that's literally just steps away from this high school. So they've known each other for years. So there was a lot of chatter after this all took place and students were reuniting with their families about who this suspect was and what their possible motive could be. But right now, the most important thing that law enforcement officials are saying is that the students are being reunited with their families and that they're just praying that everyone else who was a victim of this shooter is able to recover, Hallie.
I know that you and our teams down there have been talking to people about what they saw. Can you give us a sense of that?
Absolutely. I got a chance to speak to some students who were inside of the school. And as you can imagine, they had absolutely no idea what was unfolding. Some of them expressed to me that they could hear gunshots. Others said that there were flashing lights within their school and that the doors of their classrooms all automatically locked. So they knew that something was going on. They didn't think it was a drill because most of the time they're notified in advance if there's any sort of active shooter drill. So they all started frantically texting and calling calling their parents, and a lot of them said that they got together and huddled with other students and prayed, and they just didn't know if they were going to be able to see their parents at the end of the school day, Hallie.
Priya Shrithar, thank you very much for that reporting. We'll let you go. I know you have more work to do. Tom, let me bring you into the conversation here because we just got that update from law enforcement officials. There is a lot of coordination, obviously, on the local, the state, the federal level, but still a lot of questions here about motive, for example, although police say that they don't believe that the victims had connections with the shooter, or at least it's not clear what those connections are.
That's right, Hallie. So the 14-year-old who they believe is responsible for this shooting is, in fact, alive and is talking to police. So that's a good thing for police to be able to have the ability to try to determine how this happened today. They also said that they are talking to the shooter's family. So that's a big update as well. One potential cause for concern here is twofold. One, with respect to the weapon, it is, if in fact he used a handgun, it is illegal under Georgia law for somebody under the age of 18, and we know this person was is 14 years old, to possess a handgun. So that's the first thing. Second thing is it's illegal to possess that handgun within school property or any sort of weapon within school property. So that takes care of the legality of all of this, and there'll be some questions as to how he was able to get a gun in the first place. We know from some of the students that spoke, they're certainly aware of who this person was. They seem to indicate that they predominantly kept to themselves, so there's not a lot of information about this student's background that we have. Police did say that he's going to be charged as an adult, Hallie, and that should mean that those court documents will become available to us at some point. That might shed further information. They said that they're going to continue to give us briefings later this evening, and so that should be able to get us some information as well as to how this happened. And then in law enforcement circles, over the past several years, there's been a real concerted effort, particularly with these teenage alleged shooters and shooters that they've determined to go after from a motive standpoint so that they can try to determine why we're at the point where we're at, where we have so many of these school shootings involving teenage kids as the perpetrators. And so that's something that they're going to be focused on as well.
I want to play a little bit, Tom, of what we heard from the sheriff, of course, very emotional, talking about what is next for this community.
Sure.
I never imagined that I would be speaking to the media in my career over something that happened today, the pure evil that happened today. This hits home for me. I was born and raised here. I went to school in this school system. My kids go to this school system, but I want to make it very clear that hate will not prevail in this county.
Tom, as often as this horrific nightmare plays out in schools across the country, in this country, it never gets any easier for the people who have to see the aftermath of it.
That's exactly right. And every time there is another school shooting, I mean, you and I have spoken about this so often together on this show and on other programs about these type of issues. And how often have we then gone to the families from every town, the Newtown, Connecticut school shooting victim families who talk about this, who are trying to affect the change that they're seeking. How many times have we gone to them? How many times is this re-traumatizing for families that have gone through these types of things before? How often will it be re-traumatizing for the kids that went to this school today and dealt with what they dealt with every time they hear about a school shooting for the rest of their lives? And so I think that's something as a society we don't often think about. We're very focused on the suspect. We're very focused on the motive for, I think, probably important reasons to try to determine why this actually happens. But long term, there's a victim component to it, Hallie, and that's something that we'll have to reckon with.
Tom Winter, thank you very much for that. We'll be looking for updates from you throughout the evening. We also know that we've just heard from Vice President Harris on this, as well as President Biden, as she is on the campaign trail. Former President Trump is also set to be back on the trail in just a couple of hours in Pennsylvania. This comes as he's downplaying some brand new polling showing Harris outperforming him just barely in 4 of the 6 battleground states that'll be key to winning in November. Take a look. No blowouts here, folks. It is all very close. It is all very much inside the margin of error, but it is a snapshot of the state of play as we're just about 2 months out from Election Day. And the vice president, well, she's not taking New Hampshire's 4 electoral votes for granted. She's there trying to make a case on the economy, an issue that everybody cares about, including younger voters, who, according to our new NBC News survey, say inflation and the cost of living is the thing that matters most to them. A whole lot of them are not super optimistic about their financial future. They think it's going to take longer for them to buy a house or to buy a car than it did for their parents. Half of them say they plan on voting for the vice president, something that she's nodding to. Watch.
I love Gen Z. I just love Gen Z.
She says she loves Gen Z. Yamiche Alcindor is traveling with the vice president in New Hampshire. And Yamiche, a lot of news coming out of this campaign event, of course. But she began by referencing what we started our show with, which was that school shooting, yet another one east of Atlanta.
That's right. Vice President Harris started her remarks by really marking that there was yet another school shooting. And she said that this was really a senseless tragedy after many other senseless tragedies. And she said, we can stop this. This does not have to be this way. So she was really leaning in on the message that America and the federal government should be doing more. And we've heard over and over again this idea of freedom in her campaign. And she talked about the fact that students should be free to go to school without being scared that they were going to be shot in school. And she called on Congress and said that if she were president, that she would work with Congress, if Democrats could take the House and the Senate, that she would work with Democrats to pass meaningful gun reform. But she called on Congress to do more on this issue. But as you said, she also did come to New Hampshire, which of course is not, but this is a state. There is work to be done in down ballot races. And she talked a lot about the economy, talking about small businesses. I want to walk through some of the things that she's already put up as proposals. They include federal price gouging, increase the corporate tax rate from 21% to 28%. She also wants to increase small business tax reduction for startups tenfold more, from $5,000 to $50,000. And she also wants to provide up to $25,000 in down payment support for first-time home buyers. And she wants to do a $10,000 tax credit for first-time home buyers. So that's just some of the stuff that Vice President Harris is laying out as her economic vision as she tries to make the case that she really wants to be a president that will be focused on making sure that the middle is taken in this country, Hallie.
Yamiche Alcindor, thank you very much for that. New details tonight on an alleged Russian election interference scheme to try to use the media to influence potential voters just 60 days out from the election. So this is a three-pronged push, right? Let's talk about them. One, you've got these new DOJ indictments against 2 employees of RT. You see RT television? That's like the state-run network. You might know it from before as Russia Today. Now they call it RT. This indictment says that a Tennessee-based company was directed to publish pro-Russian content and then tricked American influencers into basically parroting that disinformation. So it's coming at the same time as that second prong, action from the Treasury Department, new sanctions against a dozen Russians, including top RT officials. And then there's the third prong, moves by the State Department to restrict visas of certain people in the Russian media world and designating several state-run media companies as foreign missions. So what's the response from Moscow? They say, I'm quoting here, 2016 called and it wants its cliches back. They're also saying that they got to, quote, earn our Kremlin paycheck somehow. Kelly O'Donnell is following this for us. Kelly, these indictments and sanctions, how much of this is about cracking down? How much of this is about sounding the alarm for people that there is this kind of thing out there as we're getting closer and closer to people starting to vote?
Well, certainly they want the American public to recognize there is a vulnerability here. And certainly people have heard about election interference in past campaigns, and that in and of itself became polarized and politicized. And what the administration is saying today in this broad, sweeping approach is to say there are bad actors, and where they can seize those domains or entities to stop them, they will. Where they can sanction, they will. And they want the American people to get a sense of the fact that there's information that is coming that is, they believe, sanctioned directly by the Kremlin, meaning approved by the Kremlin, and also with an intention of doing a couple of things. Influencing American voters on pro-Russian views. So one example would be against the Ukraine war, and another to sow discord in our politics. Today, John Kirby, who speaks for the National Security Council, addressed this and said that the administration believes it needs to take wide and broad action.
As today's actions make clear, we have the ability to monitor these threats, to thwart them, to identify the actors involved, and to hold the actors involved accountable. This cannot alone be the work of government. Every citizen bears a hand. Please take time to consider how you get your news and information.
And Admiral Kirby talked about relying on trusted sources of media and people being cautious about how they consume information on social media. That is a tall order and very difficult for a broad swath of Americans. But that's part of what they want to say, is there can be things that look like news material, that look like, and they're affected by AI as well, and they are flawed and fake and are trying to persuade with the intention of supporting Vladimir Putin, according to the Biden administration. Hallie?
Is there any indication, Kelly, that there may be more election interference indictments or sanctions coming down the pipeline?
Well, they say they are staying on top of this, and where they can call it out, they will. And of course, 60 days before the election, we're at 62 right now, is a critical time in terms of any indictment and action that could affect the election. That's sort of a policy issue for the Department of Justice. But they want people to be aware that this is happening and that they believe that Vladimir Putin is sanctioning. I've used that word again. I don't mean it in the penalty way. I mean it in the approving way. He's authorizing these kinds of activities using state media to try to influence Americans. So part of it is a siren today. Part of it is a mechanism to try to stop it. Hallie?
Kelly O'Donnell on the White House North Lawn. Kel, thank you. To New York now, where the governor speaking on the Chinese consul general in New York City today, just 24 hours after her former aide pleaded not guilty to charges of spying for the Chinese government. Watch.
The indictment lays out very clearly evidence that these actions taken by Linda's son were an absolute betrayal of the trust of two administrations in state government, lying and misleading to these administrations, breaking our ethics rules, and even forging my signature on documents.
So what is going to happen to Linda's son? That is the former aide. We know that she cannot talk to the Chinese consulate according to the terms of her arrest, as both prosecutors and her attorneys get set to meet again later on this month. Stephanie Gosk is covering all of this for us. And Sept, this has been a story that has unfolded over the course of the last maybe 48, 72 hours or so. Yeah. And it's got a lot to it. I think people remember it from our coverage yesterday. This former aide is accused of, for example, having salted ducks sent to her parents in exchange for certain things that she was allegedly doing for the Chinese government.
Right. You're fixating appropriately, I think, on the salted duck. But beyond that, I mean, look, going forward, what's happening right now with Linda's son and her husband is that they have been restricted. Their travel has been restricted. They have to stay in New York or Long Island, and I believe Maine and New Hampshire, and that's it. And they also are not allowed to have any contact with the Chinese consulate in the build-up to this trial. What's important to focus on here, Hallie, really is, you know, you talk about spies, and a lot of people think about nuclear secrets being stolen and that kind of spying. But what this is about is influence, and it dovetails with what Kelly was just talking about with the Russian government, the Chinese government in this case, trying to influence opinion in the United States about China and also specifically about Taiwan. And in some cases, she even restricted officials from Taiwan from meeting, allegedly, with the governor. And it is not the same kind of spying, but it is something that the government right now, the U.S. government, is increasingly concerned about, especially in the build-up to the election, Hallie.
Stephanie Goss, thank you very much for sending all over this story for us. Appreciate it. Let's go to some new reports tonight suggesting President Biden's trying to get a longtime American company to stay here in America by getting ready to block the proposed buyout of U.S. steel by a company from Japan. Now, NBC News has not independently confirmed those reports. They're coming from the New York Times and the Washington Post. The Treasury Department's not commenting. But we do know that President Biden is no fan of this deal. He's already said so. And Vice President Harris, you see her here, said just this week, I should say, in Pittsburgh, that it is vital for our country to maintain strong American steel companies. All that said, look at what the reporting did to U.S. steel shares, plunging some 17% today. That Japanese company offering kind of an olive branch tonight, saying that even if this deal goes through, the company would still be run by Americans. And leaders at U.S. Steel, they want to keep this whole thing alive. They're rallying with staffers at their Pittsburgh headquarters today to try to drum up support from political leaders. CNBC's Eamon Jabbers is following this for us. And Eamon, explain it like in super layman terms, right, to people who aren't following the ins and outs over on CNBC. This is basically an iconic American company in one of the most critical battleground states in this election, potentially ending up run by a Japanese company. That's the backdrop to a lot of the maneuvering here, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And look, Hallie, as you know, in politics, when you have a deal like this, you've got the current Democratic nominee for president, the current Republican nominee for president, and the current incumbent president of the United States who all oppose this deal. You can imagine that it's not likely to go through. Both companies here, Nippon Steel and U.S. Steel, are making concessions, talking about the consequences of the deal not going through, trying to preserve this. But what the Washington Post and the other media have reported this evening is that the CFIUS organization is likely to block that. Now, I reached out to a White House official today who said that CFIUS, which remember is the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, which is controlled by Treasury and U.S. intelligence agencies, they have not made an official recommendation to Biden yet, and that would be the next step in the process. But you can imagine, Hallie, that if the president doesn't want it to happen, the vice president doesn't want it to happen, and the Republican nominee doesn't want it to happen, there's not much chance of it happening.
Even with these concessions? Like the idea that, oh, it'll be run by Americans, et cetera. Does that do anything to make it more appealing?
I think they're trying. I think the companies are both trying. They both want to do this deal. And I think you've got a screen prepared there of some of the concessions that the companies have made. You know, they're talking about prioritizing U.S. steel production, U.S. Steel remaining headquartered in Pittsburgh, U.S. citizens making up a majority of the board of directors, senior management as U.S. citizens, no job outsourcing, billions of dollars in improvement. What this comes down to, though, is that the Steelworkers Union doesn't want this deal to happen. They're vehemently opposed to this. They say management's being greedy, and ultimately both the Harris campaign and the Trump campaign are reaching out hard for steelworkers and union voters in Pennsylvania, and that is the key to this deal.
Eamon Javers, thank you very much for that. Coming up here on the show, a lot more to get to, including why NASA is insisting today that those two astronauts in space months longer than expected are not really stuck. Why the semantic gymnastics matter for this, well, Gilligan's Island space remake. Plus, Molson Coors now joining a wave of other companies rolling back DEI moves. So is it because of conservative backlash? The fake heiress under house arrest who's going to be dancing with the stars. How's that going to work? We'll get into that in just a second. But first tonight, it's a beer company at the center of the so-called culture wars, but not the company you might think. It's not Bud Light, after all they've been through. It's this one, Molson Coors, announcing plans to heavily scale back its DEI efforts, diversity, equity, and inclusion. In an internal memo obtained by NBC News, Molson describes changes to the company's policies, writing that there will be an evolution from our work focused on DEI to a broader view in which all our employees know they're welcome. Molson's just the latest now to try to scale back some of these DEI efforts. You see some other companies that have already done so or are in the process of it, including Lowe's, Ford, John Deere, with questions over how much of this is being driven by conservative backlash over DEI policies. NBC's Brian Chung is joining us now. Big increase, right? When you go back to 2020 in these diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. But things have changed now to a degree. Why?
Yeah, and it seems like a big U-turn, but if you rewind to 2020, that was a very different political environment when you talk about a lot of companies and just broadly speaking, culturally, a lot more awareness over diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives after the murder of George Floyd and then the Black Lives Matter protests that ensued afterwards. Now, what you're seeing is a lot of these companies saying, well, maybe we shouldn't have some of these policies codified because we're getting conservative backlash from the other side now. So again, you mentioned the growing list of companies that, in addition to Molson Coors today, that have pared back some of their DEI initiatives, at least as is written in certain portions of their corporate documentation, rather. You're seeing, again, kind of this 2024 movement after a few years ago of saying, you know what, maybe we should have been more aware of this. Now we're going to try to pare back on some of this. I want to point out, though, Molson Coors is, as you mentioned, not the same company as the Bud Light company, Anheuser-Busch, that did face that backlash from the Dylan Mulvaney transgender influencer cooperation in their marketing from a few years ago. That was another domino to fall that led to ultimately a lot of these companies pulling back here.
So Molson says that even though they're rolling back the DEI push, they're still going to make sure that their suppliers are representative of the company's consumer base, which is diverse. So how do they do that? How do they thread that needle?
Yeah, well, I mean, really what it was is that previously to this change, they had specific goals that were kind of codified, as I mentioned, in company documentation. Now they're saying that it's not necessarily going to be mandatory, but that they're still going to try to pay mind to that as they try to find suppliers. Again, what we're talking about here are suppliers in their chain, where they get the aluminum from, how do they source the barley, all those types of things. So again, they're saying we're going to pay attention to this. It's just not going to be written into any sort of documentation within the company. You're seeing a very similar thing at companies like, for example, Starbucks, where they did pull back some DEI bonuses related to executive compensation, but broadly speaking, still want to make sure they're representative across the company, Hallie.
Brian Chung, thank you very much. Appreciate you walking us through it. NASA today saying that they are on track to fly the Starliner spacecraft from Boeing back to Earth later this week. But here's the one catch. The crew members will not be inside. That's right. These two astronauts who flew up on the Starliner are not getting a ride back down. Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams. Instead, they're going to stay on the International Space Station until at least February, when they're going to catch a ride home with Boeing's competitor, SpaceX. But NASA says, listen, everybody, they're not stuck. They are not stuck. Don't call it stuck. Listen.
In my view, they were never really, they're never stuck or stranded. They always had a way to depart the space station. And to me, when somebody is stranded, there's a location where they cannot leave.
All right, so what's the deal? The capsule, again, sans astronauts, is going to undock from the ISS Friday night. It's going to aim for touchdown something like 6 hours later in New Mexico, out in sort of the desert there. Tom Costello is joining us now. It is the space saga that never ends here. Yeah. We've called it here kind of like the Gilligan's Island remake. It was supposed to be a 3-hour tour. This was supposed to be, what, 10 days?
10 days,
now
we're on day 91.
What is the deal?
Listen, I shouldn't laugh. I feel sorry for them. They're apparently in good spirits, by the way. You know, they're typical NASA diehard astronauts and test pilots. Bottom line here is that NASA is not at all convinced that it would be safe to bring Starliner home on its own because they continue to have the thruster problems. And so they're going to bring Starliner home remotely, robotically, no astronauts on board. But here's the thing about that. They've had to reprogram the onboard computers to be able to come back autonomously with mission control help, because it's supposed to be with astronauts behind the controls. So that's taken some time. They're going to shut the hatch between the space station and Starliner, we think tomorrow. And then, if all goes as planned, they will undock from the station on Friday at about 6 p.m.
Is there any risk down on the ground here that something could, it could crash or whatever? I mean, there's this pretty.
Well, I think one of the questions we asked in the news conference today with NASA mission managers is, could this pose any threat to the public as it's coming in on reentry? It's coming in over Baja, then a very remote portion of Mexico, and then sliding up into New Mexico. All of that is pretty uninhabitable. Okay. I mean, very isolated towns. NASA insists they really don't think so. Okay. The concern really has been not that the thing's going to blow up, but that if they lost the thrusters, which they've been having problems with, then the reentry may go wrong. And instead of landing X on the spot, they're going to be over here on Z, and they may not have the ability to get the crew members if they were in the wrong place.
Okay. We talked about those crew members. As you say, they are in good spirits, which is awesome. We love to see that. So they say. Delayed something like 5 times. We can show it here. And yet, you heard it from NASA there, really saying, look, they're not stuck. You heard the explanation. Why is NASA really sort of taking exception with that? Is this about kind of, for lack of a better phrase, the PR optics of this?
I think so. I mean, listen, I've had multiple conversations with NASA people over the last few months, and they, I'm the one who's, somebody at NASA said to me, this sounds like Gilligan's Island, doesn't it? Really? Well, of course, I used that on the air, and then NASA got upset with me. Listen, the bottom line is it's a little silly. If you go to the shopping mall and your car breaks down, are you stuck at the mall? Kinda. I mean, until you can get a ride home, right? You're kind of stuck. Doesn't mean that you'll never, ever get home, but it means, for now, I'm kind of stuck. Well, that's what the situation is. They take exception because if the space station were in jeopardy, if there was a meteor shower coming at them, then NASA would say, okay, get on Starliner and go home. So do they have an emergency life raft? Yes, but NASA doesn't really feel good about that emergency life raft if it was otherwise a normal return.
You talk about that ride home. Instead, these astronauts, instead of catching a ride back home on the Boeing ship they came up with, they're going to go home on the SpaceX ship.
Arch rival.
The enemy,
SpaceX.
or,
Yes.
corporate enemy, I should say.
I have been watching to see if Elon Musk gloats about this.
Has he?
On Twitter or X or whatever it's called these days. So far, no. Okay. I would imagine that he's playing nice because he can't afford to lose the contract with Boeing or with NASA or irritate NASA mission managers.
Good point. Tom Costello, lots to unpack on this.
Oh, it's so much fun, this beat.
Appreciate you. Thank you for coming on, Tom.
Okay.
Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, the Israeli Prime Minister says today any ceasefire deal has to guarantee that the area between the Gaza-Egypt border is secure and can never be used as a lifeline for Hamas. Prime Minister Netanyahu's comments coming as huge protests continue across Israel, with people there demanding he do more to get the remaining hostages back home. Number 2, a hospital in Oregon getting sued for more than $300 million after a nurse was accused of replacing prescribed fentanyl with tap water in IV drips. This complaint accuses the hospital of negligence. This now former nurse pleaded not guilty to 44 counts of second-degree assault. A spokesperson from the hospital told the AP it has no comment. Number 3, Elton John says he is partially blind after a very intense eye infection earlier this year. He says he's healing now, but that it's a very slow process, and it's going to take some time before sight returns to the eye that was infected. Number 4, an Australian Olympic breakdancer, now infamous, apologizing today in her first big interview since the Paris Games. I know you remember Ray Gun and all the backlash she got online from that routine that included, like, the kangaroo hop, the floor situation thing. Ray Gun says she's sorry, but in her words, she cannot control how people react. When asked if she really thinks she's the best female breaker in Australia, she replied, I think my record speaks to that. Number 5, remember the con artist who posed as a wealthy heiress named Anna Delvey? Well, she's got a new gig. Dancer. For real. Dancing with the Stars. She's going to be on the next season. Anna Sorokin is going to be allowed to compete even though she is on house arrest facing deportation. She'll be sharing the stage with former NBA star Dwight Howard and the Bachelorette lead Jen Tran. When we come back, what's in the water in one Texas city that has officials telling people do not drink it? Plus, why it'll be Christmas in Venezuela, like really soon, like 3 weeks soon. We'll explain. How the Trump team's courting support from younger men this year in a supercharged way. We're getting into that, and where Mr. Trump's own young man, his son, is going to college in a couple minutes. But first, an unorthodox, to say the least, move from Venezuela's president, announcing that this year, he's declaring this year, guess what, Christmas? No, it's not going to be on December 25th. Christmas will be in October, he says. Here he is, making this grand pronouncement on local TV.
In honor of you, in gratitude to you, I am going to decree an early Christmas for the 1st of October. Christmas starts on October 1st for everyone.
It does? Can you just do that? Can it just be done just like that? Well, I guess Nicolas Maduro seems to think so. Why is he doing it? Well, because of what you're seeing on screen. This is his latest move to try to bring down tensions in his country after weeks of mass protests over that highly contested presidential election. NBC's Valerie Castro is joining us now with more. It is clearly, Valerie, a pure political play from Maduro here in a very conspicuous manner. Right, taking this super popular holiday that everyone loves that is tied to December 25th for a reason and saying, no, it's October 1st now. What, does he think that's going to work or help?
Apparently, Hallie, he does. It looks like he's doing this to garner support. And as you mentioned, there have been weeks and weeks of massive protests since the election that he declared himself the winner. And during all of those protests, there have also been mass arrests. More than 2,000 people have been arrested by the government. That includes journalists, politicians, and aid workers. Just yesterday, the government announced an arrest warrant was issued for the opposition candidate, the man who ran against Maduro, Edmundo Gonzalez. He has been in hiding for the last several weeks. weeks and hasn't been seen since. But Maduro now announcing that Christmas will, in fact, this year be in October. Christmas in Venezuela is usually a time when government workers get their Christmas bonuses. So again, this could be a way of trying to garner support, shore up his support. It also could just be a power play to say, look, I'm the guy in power. Christmas will be when I say it is. He says he wants to bring in a season filled with peace, happiness, and security. Hallie?
I mean, okay, so when's New Year's? I mean, there's like a lot of questions around the functionality of this against the backdrop of what you've described, Valerie, here, right? An enormous amount of tension, drama there, and it's coming as the State Department now says it's looking into a member of the Navy, the U.S. Navy, who was arrested in Venezuela last week and is still being held. How does that tie into what we're seeing in this country right now?
Well, it certainly adds to all of the tensions. We know the U.S. just seized a plane that Maduro owned. They say it was purchased illegally in the U.S. As far as that sailor is concerned, the Pentagon really hasn't released a lot of information. They say it was an unauthorized visit to the country on personal business. That service member was detained last week. The State Department really not releasing any other details other than to say they are monitoring the situation, and the identity of that service member has not been released. Hallie?
Valerie Castro, thank you very much for that. NBC News covers hundreds of other stories every day. And because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Midwest Bureau, the captain of the Columbus Blue Jackets, remembering teammate Johnny Gaudreau today. Watch.
As a team, we're going to get through this together. We're going to grieve, cry, be vulnerable, and support each other every step of the way. But we will persevere because I know that's what Johnny would have wanted.
Remember, the NHL player and his brother Matthew were killed last week when they were hit by a drunk driver while riding their bikes. The suspect now faces several charges. The team's set to host a candlelight vigil for the brothers a little later on tonight. Out of our Southern Bureau, officials in Grand Prairie, Texas, look at this, passing out water, telling thousands of people not to drink from the tap because it's contaminated with something that's like a foaming agent. The city's mayor says firefighting foam, like the stuff they use to put out fires, got into the water supply. Don't drink it. There's going to be a boil water advisory soon there. And out of our Northeast Bureau, take a look at this. It might look like rain. You know what it actually is? A leak inside the tunnel connecting Manhattan and Queens, one of them. Officials had to temporarily shut down part of it after a contractor drilled a hole into a tube accidentally. That created the water, the leak, etc. So listen, we're learning tonight that the former first son is starting college in New York at NYU, specifically Barron Trump, heading there as they start school this week, according to his dad. And the former president's 18-year-old son represents a big voting group that Republicans really want to lock down. It's partly why Mr. Trump and his team are leaning into what's been dubbed the manoverse, the universe of men, specifically younger white men, a strategy that could help Mr. Trump win back the White House for a second term. Garrett Hake explains how.
Today is going to be the most important stream I've ever done, first of all.
When former President Donald Trump was interviewed last month on Aiden Ross's show, he said it was his sons who tipped him off to the streaming star.
They told me about how big Barron.
Yeah.
He said, Dad, he's really big.
Barron was right. That segment got hundreds of thousands of views on the popular live stream platform Kick, over 2.5 million more on YouTube. But it's another group of young men the former president is trying to impress.
You can't vote for Kamala and be a real man.
Some are calling it the bro vote. Trump drawing support in large numbers from young, mostly white men ages 18 to 29. The Republicans hope will have a major influence in this election.
They really focus not on the policy, but on the personality.
Team Trump knows it and is leaning in.
There's a lot of social dogma about what it means to be a Trump supporter on a college campus, and I'm doing everything I can to helpfully mobilize my friends.
Trump has shown that he's able to run the country better than Biden has.
For their parents, it may be Tucker Carlson or Sean Hannity, but this generation increasingly gets their information from social media on everything from the economy to the border.
I hear like how many families it affects. And that's what I see most about on Twitter and Instagram.
This is a group that has come of age during COVID, where they spent a lot of time online, on social media. They were hearing echoes of Trump's version of masculinity on one side, and conspiracy theories, government not doing their job.
Online juggernauts like the Nelk Boys, popular with young men, have evolved from hyper-sexualized, prank-only content to political commentary, drawing huge numbers of eyeballs. Following his felony conviction in New York, the former president's first appearance, a UFC fight. It's also where Trump created his first TikTok, debuting on the platform he once promised to ban. Shortly after, he appeared with Uber YouTuber Logan Paul, tapping into his 23 million plus subscribers in a conversation full of catnip for the faithful audience.
Unidentified aerial phenomena in the sky. We don't know what they are. Do you?
It's very possible.
Former President Trump's show of strength following an assassination attempt also resonating with his base.
This situation completely made him invincible.
And this year's RNC tailor-made to amplify Trump's bravado. But for all of the former president's popularity among young males, it's also highlighting a growing gender gap. Recent polling from the New York Times Siena shows in 6 swing states, young men favor Trump by 13 points. Young women favor Vice President Harris by 38 points, a 51-point gap. And the Harris campaign hopes the vice president's running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, a former teacher and football coach with 24 years of service in the National Guard, may counter Trump's appeal with young men. The Trump campaign betting it's not enough.
You ever been in a fist fight, Mr. President?
Probably not.
To win the fight for the votes of millions of young men.
All right, Garrett is joining us now here on set, and it is a very clear strategy, right, by the Trump team based on who he's talking to. Looking at just this week, Lex Friedman, heavily male audience there. Talk through the gender gap dynamics here, because the Trump campaign is looking at similar numbers that we are.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, first of all, the focus on men is very specific, and it's not male voters even. It's a universe of men who they think don't even care about politics in general, but they think if they did care, they'd probably like Donald Trump.
That's why show up to vote.
Yeah, exactly. If they can turn them into voters, that's why the celebrity focus matters. That's why just even being spotted ringside at a UFC fight is useful to him. There's been a lot of reportage on this and the idea that this gender gap is probably easier for Harris to improve her numbers with men than it is for Trump to improve his numbers with women. Why? The bigger issue, abortion rights. Trump is, the architect of the end of Roe. He's very proud of it. It is a huge negative for him with women. And when you look at some of this polling, some of the most pro-choice or most in favor of abortion rights segments of the population are actually young, single men. And the theory is that if that issue can get brought in front of men, Harris can do better with men. There's just no path for Trump with young women, and he's not really trying. They've made no effort on this so far, and they're basically running out of time.
Garrett?
But if we see him on Call Her Daddy,
I was going to say, if
yeah.
he ends up with Alex Cooper, Alex Earl, then it would be a very different story. Garrett Haig, thank you very
You
much. Coming up here on the show, Katy Perry defending her controversial collaboration on this new album. Why it might be hurting her comeback. Next. Katy Perry tonight responding to her new controversial collaboration, working with a music producer who is accused of rape. Listen.
Look, I understand that it started a lot of conversations, and he was one of many collaborators that I collaborated with. But the reality is it comes from me. The truth is I wrote these songs from my experience of my whole life going through this metamorphosis. And he was one of the people to help facilitate all that, one of the writers, one of the producers.
So the guy that she's talking about here, Dr. Luke, remember, he settled a lawsuit with another singer, Kesha, last year after she accused him of rape. He has denied all the allegations. Now, Luke has produced some mega hits for Perry, songs that I know you know, California Girls, Teenage Dream. She brought him back for her new album, which is supposed to be kind of a big comeback for Katy Perry. The lead single debuted at number 110 on Spotify's top streaming chart, and then it basically fell off the next day. Some critics say fans may not be listening because of her work with Dr. Luke. We've reached out to his team for comment, but no response. Chloe Malas is joining us now. Talk about the reaction here from some fans. Could it be that this Luke collaboration really is why Katy Perry is not like in the top 10, top 50?
It could be, Hallie, but it also could be because the music video for Woman's World got a lot of heat, a lot of criticism. This is Katy Perry's 6th album. It's due out on September 20th, and it's getting a lot of criticism. Rolling Stone had a headline saying, could this be like the biggest comeback flop of all time when it comes to that song? And in that music video, she's poking fun at female empowerment, and on one hand, she's like, kind of channeling Rose Rosie the Riveter, and on the other hand, she's throwing her boobs in the camera. And so fans have said, you know, this is not an example of female empowerment, but could it have to do with Dr. Luke, like you point out? I mean, it was a very big deal when Kesha sued Dr. Luke in 2014. This went on for 9 years. It was supposed to go to trial. You know, like you said, Dr. Luke denying the accusations, Kesha claiming that she was drugged and raped by him when she wanted to get out of her music contract with him. And yes, you know, and it was supposed to go to trial, like I said, and it settled before it went to trial. Now, you know, obviously Katy Perry has worked with Dr. Luke before. Like you said, they've had a string of hits together. But was it in poor taste to bring him back? I mean, some fans on social media are saying that they won't listen to the album or her music anymore because of that.
Was it surprising that she responded publicly to this backlash?
I mean, it's something, though, Hallie, that people have been talking about. It's the big elephant in the room. And obviously, Dr. Luke has been, you know, this is a big deal, right? Like I said, it's been going on for 9 years with Kesha. It dominated the headlines at one point in the music industry. And the fact that she is such a famous artist, to bring him back, one of the most famous, to work with him again since those allegations, you know, it was something that she had to address. And obviously, doing it on the Call Her Daddy podcast, it's a massive platform and a way to reach a lot of younger folks in her audience that might not have followed it over the last 9 years.
Chloe Malas, we're glad to have you covering this story for us. Thank you very much. Still to come here on the show, the NFL's big bet to try to protect players from head injuries. So will it pay off? That's next in The Original. To tonight's Original now, with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And you know that this is the start of football season, right? So for the first time, the NFL this season, is letting players wear these things. They look like helmets. They're guardian caps. It's like this extra protective cover. The idea being, right, give another layer of protection to the head, try to stave off serious long-term brain conditions like CTE. Here's the question, though. Will players actually wear them? Our Sam Brock has more.
Football. It's America's game. With the biggest crowds, the biggest place, and the biggest hits. But this season, the NFL is taking additional steps to protect its players from the impact of all those blows, allowing them to wear guardian caps during regular season games. It slips over a helmet and softens the impact by up to 33%, according to the manufacturer. The question now, will the players actually wear them?
This is a guardian cap.
Colts tight end Kylan Granson plans to.
All it is essentially a little extra padding on the exterior of the helmet.
And he's hoping his stance rubs off on others.
You know, prioritize your safety because, you know, it's a hard game. It's hard on the body. And, you know, there's life after football.
But some other players in the rough and tumble world of the NFL have scoffed at the idea of extra protection. One player writing on X, these caps make no difference. Another simply saying, ew.
Do you think the primary pushback from people is just it looks weird?
Some of it definitely is. It looks kind of silly to them. My health takes precedent over aesthetic and look or comfortability.
Guardian caps first appeared on the practice scene in 2022. The NFL ultimately requiring them for most positions, but there was no option to wear one in a game until now. The NFL says it wants to lower the frequency of major blows to the head as medical experts fear the long-term impact of all those hits, like CTE.
CTE stands for chronic traumatic encephalopathy, a degenerative brain disease that starts while someone is an active athlete getting hundreds or thousands of hits to the head.
The progressive condition can cause a long list of symptoms, from depression and anxiety to aggression, memory loss, and dementia. A recent study found it's not just concussions that cause CTE, but cumulative hits over the course of a career.
We think the Guardian Cap's doing two things. One is that the additional padding is limiting the amount of force that's actually going into the brain. And number two, they slide on the surface of the helmet, dispersing some of that energy.
The NFL reports a 52% drop in concussions during preseason practices among players wearing the Guardian caps. Though Nowinski notes there's no peer-reviewed study yet published that backs up the league's data. The NFL has also been funding the development of new helmets with extra protection, which have tested so well, according to the league, they can be worn instead of Guardian caps in practice. But experts still warn, there's no silver bullet.
There is always a risk that the better the equipment gets, the more players feel invincible and use their head as a weapon.
For now, Granson says the decision to wear a Guardian cap for pros and younger players alike is a no-brainer.
I think it's definitely important for safety starting early.
And Sam is joining us now. So let's pick up on that thread, Sam, starting early. There are some high schools who are giving options for those athletes to wear Guardian caps too, right? What's your sense, based on your reporting on this, of how widespread it could end up being, not just at the pros, but at the lower levels as well?
Sure. So my sense is, Hallie, let's start with the prevalence part of this first.
Yeah.
Boston University CTE Center studied 376 brains of deceased former NFL players. 345 of them were diagnosed with CTE. That is a 91.7% rate. It's shocking. Now, look, that's also self-selecting. You know, you have family members who are donating brains on behalf of their loved ones, or football players who perhaps knew they might be suffering. So that's one slice. But what the study does say is that this is not about a couple of different hits. It's about a lifetime, as you suggest, from youth, really, of small incremental hits that add up. Now, right now, there are no requirements on the youth level or the high school level for these Guardian caps. You don't really see them. But I will tell you, just anecdotally, we did a story on this about a week ago, 6 or 7 high school and middle school students who died recently, within a matter of weeks after playing football or from football-related activities. A few of those were traumatic brain injury-related, at least appeared to be. The father of one of those boys said he wants to see Guardian caps at the lower levels, and he wants to see it right now before a single other person dies. Some of the evidence is inconclusive at this point. The NFL has published its own data on this. There's not sort of peer-reviewed studies that have said this absolutely reduces head injuries and concussions, but if we believe that what they've collected so far is accurate, yeah, it could absolutely make a difference from the lower levels all the way on up to adults.
Definitely something to watch this football season. Sam Brock, thank you so much for that. Sure. That does it for us for this hour. More coverage picks up right now. We're coming on the air tonight with devastating new details just into us on that deadly school shooting in Georgia. 2 students dead, 2 teachers dead. What we know about those victims, the investigation, and what we're learning about why the teenage suspect will be tried as an adult. Plus, the new plan on what voters say is the most important issue to them. Kamala Harris talking the economy with a new edge in new polls. Plus, what we're just learning about the debate coming up just a few days away. More on that in just a sec. Plus, NASA updating us on its plan to try to bring those stranded astronauts back to Earth. Don't call them stuck, though. We'll explain why. And yet another beer company now facing new backlash for its DEI plans, why it's scaling back, and what it all has to do with the so-called culture wars. Then, can you really just declare that Christmas will now be in October? Well, the leader of Venezuela just did in a bizarre and brazen political play. So how does that work? We'll explain later in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie, and we begin tonight with those new details out of Georgia and that school shooting east of Atlanta. 4 people dead, 2 students, 2 teachers, according to police, others hurt, and a teenage suspect now in custody. Right as we're coming on the air, we're just learning in the last hour, 90 minutes, that the suspect was a student, in fact, at the school, that they will be charged with murder and tried as an adult. School is not in session. It's going to stay closed through the end of the week. And here's what else we know as we speak. Police and first responders ended up on the scene at Appalachia High School after reports of an active shooter and the school going into lockdown. You're seeing here now some of the aftermath of this. We want to show you what happened. Other schools went into lockdown, and then about an hour later, look at this. Students gathered on the football field. This is aerial video, obviously. They were getting ready to be released to their parents. At one point, a medical chopper was seen airlifting a patient from the scene. We know this high school has about 2,000 students. They're just a few weeks into the school year. This is just the start of their school year. This is happening about an hour outside of Atlanta, where the mayor says they're beefing up security at other schools because of this. The Georgia governor wants all available state resources here. And here in Washington, we know President Biden has been briefed, saying in part, ending this gun violence epidemic is personal to me. Some of the scenes you just looked at, some of the scenes of students escaping, getting to safety, have become all too familiar in this country, with 45 school shootings in America this year alone. We've got our team all over this. Tom Winter is standing by, but I want to start first with Marissa Parra, because this law enforcement briefing in just the last 90 minutes tonight answered some of the questions, like about this suspect, a teenager who is set to be tried as an adult. But there's still a lot we don't know. Walk us through it.
Right. Well, a big question, of course, on everyone's minds, the identities of those victims, Hallie. And I'm seeing a lot of chatter online, a lot of posts of heartbreak of exactly that. But Hallie, we are holding off on reporting on that for two reasons. One, of course, we want to make sure that we are correct and accurate on something so sensitive. But furthermore, because police have not confirmed it, a lot of times what that means is they're still in the process of notifying next of kin. So what that means is police may very well still be in the process of notifying family members that this is, in fact, the worst day of their lives, Hallie. But I can tell you, we talked about 4 people dead, 2 students, 2 teachers, 9 people injured from gunshot wounds. Others suffered and went to the hospital for other symptoms, including anxiety and panic attack symptoms. But Hallie, what we're hearing from people closest to this, whether it's relatives or eyewitnesses themselves, obviously describing chaos and trauma. We heard from breathless parents sprinting to that football field to find out if their student, if their child was okay, had survived this. And this is a high school. Remember, these are young kids, anywhere between the ages of 13, maybe 19 tops. So you're seeing sobering images on your screen right now. Those ambulances lined up one after another outside of this high school. We saw, of course, people running. And I want to take you to some of what we're hearing. Again, young people who had just started school describing hearing the gunshots, seeing gunpowder and blood on the floors, crying as they were running for their lives.
Just upset and disappointed in the school, honestly, because if something like this can happen here when you think it's a normal day, it could happen anywhere.
I thought I was going to die. I was holding some random kid's hand. It's not really something someone should ever have to go through. It's not something I ever want to go through. Yeah, it's traumatizing. A lot of people were crying. I was one of them. I was crying. I didn't want to die that way.
And I will point out, Hallie, you know, in some of these interviews, you can tell how emotional they are. And in some of them, you can almost tell that they're just in a state of shock, that what just happened really hasn't hit them yet. But that trauma, palpable. District schools are closed for the week. This high school is now a crime scene. So this school closed not only because this is now a crime scene. They need to go through all of the evidence that is now on the floors in that school, in the hallways, but also because of the trauma that this school, these students, faculty, staff have now gone through. They're offering grief counseling to people who need it. And Hallie, we noticed the impact this had even on the sheriff, who got emotional when it was his turn to speak this evening. I want to take you to what we heard.
I never imagined that I would be speaking to the media in my career over something that happened today, the pure evil that happened today. This hits home for me. I was born and raised here. I went to school in this school system. My kids go to this school system. But I want to make it very clear that hate will not prevail in this county.
And I will point out that before he went up to the podium, or before he spoke, he had to take a few minutes to gather himself because he was very clearly rattled and emotional from this, Hallie. You mentioned just under 2,000 students enrolled at this high school. Winder is small. It's situated between Athens, Georgia, and Atlanta. There's roughly 19,000 people in Winder, Georgia. This is a tight-knit community. And I want to point out, even if the number stays at what it is, 4 dead, 9 injured. This is a small community, one that is undoubtedly impacted and shaken by this for a long time, Hallie.
Marissa Parra, thank you very much for that. Tom, let me go to you now because we talked about this, an all too familiar nightmare for parents in this country. The concern, of course, about school shootings continuing to escalate. And at this moment, a lot of coordination between state, local, and federal law enforcement officials. And while the focus is appropriately on the victims, there are also questions now about motive, questions that we don't know the answer to.
That's exactly right, Hallie. And so the one thing we do know is that this suspect, age 14, expected to be charged with murder is a result of the investigation here. Apparently, he is not only alive, but he's also speaking to law enforcement. So that's something that could potentially be helpful to them when it comes to motive. And more we've seen, according to law enforcement officials I've spoken to across the country and, frankly, in various other countries surrounding the United States, speaking of Canada, and where U.S. law enforcement enforcement has connections to in the UK and elsewhere. There's really an effort by these national law enforcement organizations to drill into what is the reason why not only are we seeing so much violence involving these school shootings or terrorist events, but why is the average age coming down and down and down? And we're talking about a 14-year-old here. Assuredly, that is not the lowest age that I know for a fact that various law enforcement agencies have cases on right now when it comes to individuals that want to do violence or actually commit an act of terrorism. So when you see this with a younger and younger population, it becomes cause for concern. A couple other things that we were able to get out of that press conference earlier today. They did not say whether or not he had a handgun or a long gun. If he had a handgun, that's illegal in Georgia for anybody under the age of 18 to possess that handgun. So we'll have to find out more about that. One thing that could be helpful are the parents, and apparently law enforcement is speaking to the parents. We'll just have to see where this goes. And of course, once we get that paperwork from court, Hallie, we'll have more to update you on in the coming hours and days.
Tom Winter, thank you very much. Of course, Vice President Harris referencing this latest school shooting while she is on the campaign trail. All of it as former President Trump is also set to get on the trail again in just a couple hours in Pennsylvania. It comes as he's downplaying some brand new polling showing that the vice president outperforms him just barely in 4 of the 6 battleground states that'll be key to a win in November. Listen, folks, no blowouts here. You see these numbers. This is all very close. It is all very much inside the margin of error, but it is a snapshot of the state of play as we're just about 60 days out from Election Day. And just a few days, of course, before that potential make or break debate for Vice President Harris and former President Trump. That is coming up next week. You can watch it here on NBC News. And we're just learning from our team in just the last couple of minutes that there is a new agreement on muted microphones at this first head-to-head matchup. All of it as we're also getting some late-breaking news on one of the most high-profile never-Trumpers in the country and who she plans to vote for. Gabe Gutierrez is traveling with the vice president in New Hampshire. A lot to get to, and a lot of it coming into us in just the last couple of minutes. So look ahead to that debate. Gabe, it is going to be an incredibly high-profile moment. And there had been some questions over the rules, the microphones, et cetera. What's the resolution?
Yeah, that's right, Hallie. You know as well as anyone that the key sticking point here had been this idea of muted microphones. And you'll recall that it was President Biden's team that had asked for muted microphones in the previous debate. Now, Vice President Harris' team did not want them because they said that they wanted the audience to hear whatever Donald Trump had to say. But as you mentioned, in the last few minutes, 2 campaign sources tell NBC News that they have come to an agreement, basically the previous rules, that mics will be muted when it is not a candidate's turn to speak. And literally, just within the past few moments, Hallie, I'm getting a message from a campaign source that kind of explained the rationale for this. They believe that Vice President Harris will be disadvantaged by this, but they agreed to it because they thought that it was possible that Donald Trump could end up skipping the debate, and they want voters to hear from Donald Trump, according to them. Something else, and I'm looking at this message right now because, again, this was a letter that was sent from the campaign to ABC just a short time ago. The message says that a press pool, will be on hand to hear what the muted person may say. A candidate who constantly interrupts will be warned by the moderator, and what they say may be repeated to the audience. And if there is significant crosstalk, they may unmute both candidates' mics so the audience can understand what's happening. That apparently happened at least once during the previous CNN debate. But again, the breaking news there, Hallie, the campaign source is telling us that an agreement has finally been reached, and that debate next week is on.
Okay, that is super interesting, Gabe. What's also interesting, we know that the Harris campaign strategy, of course, is to turn out base voters, but it is also to win over Trump skeptics. We are now learning in just the last couple of minutes that arguably one of the most high-profile Trump skeptics in the country, former Congresswoman Liz Cheney, will be backing Kamala Harris. Tell us more.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I'm looking down once again because this happened moments ago. But yes, Liz Cheney was at an appearance at Duke University. And surprisingly, she came out and said that not only is she not voting for Donald Trump in this election, but that she is voting for Kamala Harris. And she said because of this reason, quote, because of the danger that Donald Trump poses, she's not only going to be voting not for Donald Trump, voting for Kamala Harris, and that is the reason she gave, because of the danger that Donald Trump poses. Now, certainly it is no surprise that there's no love lost between Liz Cheney and Donald Trump, but for her to come out so publicly right before this debate to endorse a Democrat, of course, Liz Cheney, daughter of Dick Cheney, just an iconic Republican politician, really shows just how far the establishment Republicans, old school Republicans, have broken from Donald Trump here. She's endorsing Kamala Harris.
Yeah. Gabe, I know you got to run, but just so folks know, you're in New Hampshire. If they're wondering about that backdrop behind you, because Democrats are not taking that state's for electoral votes for granted, right? Kamala Harris really focusing on the economy?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. And look, she had several, several policies that she rolled out. She'd been under pressure to detail some more of those policies. You mentioned that they're not taking New Hampshire for granted, but also very significant here is the down ballot races. There are also key races here. There's a primary, Democratic primary next week. And so Vice President Harris was here. She's expected to go to Pennsylvania tomorrow for debate prep, Hallie.
Gabe Gutierrez, thank you so much for being with us tonight. It's great to see you, pal. Let's talk about those new details tonight on an alleged Russian election interference scheme to use the media to influence potential voters with just 2 months to Election Day. This is a three-pronged push. So let me talk you through it. First, you've got this new DOJ indictment against 2 employees of RT. You see those TV vans there, formerly known as Russia Today. It's a state-run network, basically. This indictment says a Tennessee-based company was directed to publish pro-Russian stuff and then tricked American influencers into parroting the disinformation. It's coming at the same time as the second prong, action from the Treasury Department, new sanctions announced against a dozen Russians, including top RT officials. Then there's the third prong here, the State Department, restricting visas of certain people in the Russian media world and designating several state-run media companies as foreign missions. So what is the response from Moscow? This is for real. Here's what they say, quote, 2016 called, and it wants its cliches back. I want to bring in now NBC's Kelly O'Donnell, who's following all of this for us from the White House. And Kel, there's a lot here, right? Because there have been warnings now for months from the highest levels on down that Russia was going to try to meddle in our elections yet again here. This issue of foreign interference, disinformation, and misinformation is not going away anytime soon.
And what really stands in contrast with that statement from the Kremlin is that the times are different. This is not the 2016 race. And by that, I mean the growth of influencers as having a voice, a platform, and a way to connect with voters has certainly grown. So has artificial intelligence and a way to use technology that is created out of whole cloth in some cases or alters existing images can influence people. So it's a different incarnation of these sort of dirty tricks state to state. And the U.S. government is saying that Russia, at its highest levels with Vladimir Putin's awareness and approval, has authorized these steps of trying to infiltrate the U.S. election by using these influencers. Today, the Attorney General talked about the broad way that the U.S. government will try to combat this, including shutting down sites, using sanctions, using other steps to try to stop this. And here's Merrick Garland.
The Justice Department's message is clear. We have no tolerance for attempts by authoritarian regimes to exploit our democratic system of government. The American people are entitled to know when a foreign power is attempting to exploit our country's free exchange of ideas in order to send around its own propaganda.
And the U.S. government says that Russia is trying to influence views about its own policies, trying to stir discord in the American electorate, and in some ways is certainly trying to lift up Donald Trump, which was exactly what they did do in past elections, according to the U.S. government. Hallie?
Kelly O'Donnell live for us there on the North Lawn. Kelly, thank you so much. It's good to see you, as always. Appreciate it. Some new reports tonight suggest President Biden is trying to get a longtime American company to stay here in America by getting ready to block the proposed buyout of U.S. Steel by a Japanese company. Now, NBC News has not independently confirmed these reports. They're coming from the New York Times, the Washington Post. Treasury Department's not commenting. But we do know that the president is no fan of this thing. He's already said so, and Vice President Harris said just this week, there she is in Pittsburgh, that it is vital for our nation to maintain strong American steel companies. Now, even just the reporting around this sent shares of U.S. Steel down. Look at that, something like 17%. The Japanese company that wants to buy it is today offering a kind of olive branch, saying that even if this deal goes through, the company would still be run by Americans. And leaders at U.S. Steel, they want to see this thing get done. They're trying to keep this alive, rallying with employees at their Pittsburgh headquarters today. That's what you're looking at, to try to drum up support from political leaders. CNBC's Eamon Javers is following this one for us. So to be clear, Eamon, this is a landmark American company, right? It's been around since, I think, 1901 in Pittsburgh, Western PA, one of the most critical swing states of this election. Now this Japanese company wants to buy it. No top politician seems to like the deal. Explain why not and how they would even block it if they tried.
Well, look, the swing state piece of this that you put your finger on is exactly why I think this is getting this national attention. Really, what this comes down to is a push for the union vote in the state of Pennsylvania. The U.S. Steelworkers Union does not like this deal. They want this company to remain independent of Japanese control. They are against it. Therefore, you're seeing politicians on both sides rallying against this deal. If President Biden wants to stop it, he has a very powerful tool, a committee called CFIUS, the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. It's run by Treasury with input from U.S. intelligence agencies. They have the power to stop these kinds of deals on national security grounds. If Biden wants to stop this, that's the route that he's going to take. And clearly, Kamala Harris wants this deal stopped, and Donald Trump wants this deal stopped, too. So there's huge political momentum. Even as you say, the CEOs of both companies are trying to do what they can today to keep this deal alive, Hallie.
Do you think that the CEO of U.S. Steel is bluffing when he tells the Wall Street Journal, I don't have the money to do all these changes to U.S. Steel, to these plants, et cetera? Or is that for real? Do we know?
It's tough to say. The union would say he's bluffing. You know, the company's just being greedy. They want a big payout when this deal goes through. But it's clear that Nippon Steel, the Japanese company here, will invest billions of dollars into this company when they take over if the deal goes through. So there is money there that would be coming as part of the deal.
Eamon Javers, we love when you come on and break it down for us. Thank you. We'll be watching this one, and I know you will be, too.
Thanks, Hallie.
Let's take you overseas now, because Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu tonight, well, listen, he is defiant in the face of new calls for that ceasefire that would try to free the remaining hostages held in Gaza. Today, in new speeches, he's insisting that any deal must let Israeli forces keep control of a stretch of land along the Gaza-Egypt border. It's coming as these huge protests are continuing across Israel after 6 hostages were found dead earlier this week. Raf Sanchez has more from Tel Aviv.
Hey there, an embattled but defiant Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu tonight making his case to the world, holding a rare press conference in English for the foreign media. We were there. This is a prime minister who is facing intense pressure after 4 days of large-scale protests, demonstrators demanding he make a deal to free the remaining hostages in Gaza. But the prime minister doubling down on his insistence that Israeli troops need to stay on the Egypt-Gaza border, that sensitive zone known as the Philadelphia corridor. He says if Israel leaves there, Hamas will rearm. But his insistence has become a major stumbling block in these negotiations, which now appear to be pretty seriously stalemated. And many of the families, or some of the families, of those 6 hostages killed last week say Netanyahu's refusal to make a deal cost their loved ones their lives. I put a question to the Prime Minister earlier. Take a listen.
I'm committed as the Prime Minister of Israel to 2 things. They're right here. The first one is to achieve the release of the hostages, and the second is to protect the security of Israel and make sure that we have no more hostage taking, no more murders, no more rapes, and no more rocketing of Israel.
So at this point, the Prime Minister adamant that Israeli troops will stay on the Philadelphia corridor. He says that if they don't, it will relieve pressure on Hamas to release the hostages. That is not a position shared by many of the protesters, by many of the families of the hostages. And the United States is today saying there are pathways to ensuring Israel's security needs without keeping Israeli troops on that border. Back to you.
Our thanks to Raf Sanchez for that. A lot more to get to here on the show, including an NBC News exclusive. Why the disgraced Harvey Weinstein could soon be facing new charges. Plus, the Washington Commanders suspending a top exec tonight. We'll tell you what he got caught saying on a hidden camera. NASA today saying that they are on track to fly that Starliner spacecraft back to Earth later this week with one catch, one notable exception, one human-sized exception. The two astronauts who hitched a ride up on that spacecraft, they are not coming back with it. That's right, Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams. They're going to stay on the International Space Station until at least February, when they're expected to catch a ride home with Boeing's competitor, right? Starliner's competitor, SpaceX. But NASA says, listen, do whatever you do not call these two stuck. Listen.
In my view, they were never really, they're never stuck or stranded. They always had a way to depart the space station. And to me, when somebody is stranded, there's a location where they cannot leave.
Okay. We'll get into the semantic gymnastics in a second, but what's going to happen with this actual spacecraft? The capsule is going to undock from the ISS Friday night and then aim for touchdown something like 6 hours later in a remote area of New Mexico. Tom Costello is joining us now. It is the space saga that never ends here. Yeah. We've called it here kind of like the Gilligan's Island remake. It was supposed to be a 3-hour tour. This was supposed to be, what, 10 days?
10 days. Now we're on day 91.
What is the deal?
Listen, I shouldn't laugh. I feel sorry for them. They're apparently in good spirits, by the way. You know, they're typical NASA diehard astronauts and test pilots. Bottom line here is that NASA is not at all convinced that it would be safe to bring Starliner home on its own because they continue to have the thruster problems. And so they're going to bring Starliner home remotely, robotically, no astronauts on board. But here's the thing about that. They've had to reprogram the onboard computers to be able to come back autonomously with mission control help because it's supposed to be with astronauts behind the controls. So that's taken some time. They're going to shut the hatch between the space station and Starliner, we think tomorrow. And then, if all goes as planned, they will undock from the station on Friday at about 6 p.m.
Is there any risk down on the ground here that something could, it could crash or whatever? I mean, there's this pretty.
Well, I think one of the questions we asked in the news conference today with NASA mission managers is, could this pose any threat to the public as it's coming in on reentry? It's coming in over Baja, then a very remote portion of Mexico, and then sliding up into New Mexico. All of that is pretty uninhabitable. Okay. I mean, very isolated towns. NASA insists they really don't think so. Okay. The concern really has been not that the thing's going to blow up, but that if they lost the thrusters, which they've been having problems with, then the reentry may go wrong. And instead of landing X on the spot, they're going to be over here on Z, and they may not have the ability to get the crew members if they were in the wrong place.
Okay. We talked about those crew members. As you say, they are in good spirits, which is awesome. We love to see that. So they say. Delayed something like 5 times. We can show it here. And yet, you heard it from NASA there, really saying they're not stuck. You heard the explanation. Why is NASA really sort of taking exception with that? Is this about kind of, for lack of a better phrase, the PR optics of this?
I think so. I mean, listen, I've had multiple conversations with NASA people over the last few months, and they, I'm the one who's, somebody at NASA said to me, this sounds like Gilligan's Island, doesn't it? Really? Well, of course, I used that on the air, and then NASA got upset with me. Listen, the bottom line is it's a little silly. If you go to the shopping mall and your car breaks down, are you stuck at the mall? Kinda. I mean, until you can get a ride home, right? You're kind of stuck. Doesn't mean that you'll never, ever get home, but it means, for now, I'm kind of stuck. Well, that's what the situation is. They take exception because if the space station were in jeopardy, if there was a meteor shower coming at them, then NASA would say, okay, get on Starliner and go home. So do they have an emergency life raft? Yes, but NASA doesn't really feel good about that emergency life raft. If it was otherwise a normal return.
You talk about that ride home. Instead, these astronauts, instead of catching a ride back home on the Boeing ship they came up with, they're going to go home on the SpaceX.
Arch rival.
Enemy, or, corporate enemy, I should say.
I have been watching to see if Elon Musk gloats about this.
Has he?
On Twitter or X or whatever it's called these days. So far, no. Okay. I would imagine that he's playing nice because he can't afford to lose the contract with Boeing or with NASA or irritate NASA mission managers.
Good point. Tom Costello, lots to unpack on this.
Oh, it's so much fun, this beat.
Appreciate you. Thank you for coming on, Tom.
Okay.
Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, an NBC News exclusive. A source familiar with the matter, telling our team Harvey Weinstein could be charged with more allegations of sexual misconduct. A New York grand jury has been convened, and this person says a decision could be announced as early as Friday. Weinstein's attorney says they will, in their words, be prepared for whatever comes our way. The Manhattan DA's office declined to comment to NBC News on this. Number 2, the Washington Commanders has suspended its VP of content after a video of him insulting the team's players and fans was released. The video was apparently taken with a hidden camera by O'Keefe Media during what seems to be a date with a woman who works for the company. In it, the man says some players are homophobic and referred to fans as, in his words, high school educated alcoholics, end quote. In a statement to NBC Sports, the team says there's an internal investigation and that language used in the video runs counter to their values. Number 3, Elton John says he's partially blind right now after a really bad eye infection. He says he's getting better, but that it's a very slow healing process, and it's going to take some time before his sight returns to the affected eye. Number 4, and now infamous Australian Olympic breakdancer is apologizing today in her first big interview since the Paris Games. Yes, that is Ray Gunn. I know you remember her. She got a ton of backlash online from her routine that included things like the kangaroo hop and the floor situation. She says she's sorry, but in her words, she can't control how people react. Number 5, the con artist who posed as a rich heiress named Anna Delvey. Guess where she's going to end up? Doing some very real dancing on this season's Dancing with the Stars. Yes, Anna Sorokin is going to be allowed to compete even though she's on house arrest, fighting deportation. She'll be sharing the stage with former NBA star Dwight Howard and Bachelorette lead Jen Tran. Tonight, it's a beer company at the center of the so-called culture wars, but not the company you might think. It is not Bud Light, after all they've been through. Instead, it's this one, Molson Coors, announcing plans to really scale back the company's DEI push, diversity, equity, and inclusion. In an internal memo obtained by NBC News, Molson describes changes to the company's policies, writing that there will be an evolution from our work focused on DEI to a broader view in which all of our employees know they're welcome. Molson Coors becomes just the latest company to scale back DEI efforts, joining others. You see them here like Lowe's, Ford, John Deere. Questions now, though, over how much of this is driven by conservative backlash over DEI policies. NBC's Brian Chung is joining us now for more. Big increase, right, when you go back to 2020 in these diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. But things have changed now to a degree. Why?
Yeah, and it seems like a big U-turn, but if you rewind to 2020, that was a very different political environment when you talk about a lot of companies and just broadly speaking, culturally, a lot more awareness over diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives after the murder of George Floyd and then the Black Lives Matter protests that ensued afterwards. Now, what you're seeing is a lot of these companies saying, well, maybe we shouldn't have some of these policies codified because we're getting conservative backlash from the other side now. So, again, you mentioned the growing list of companies that, in addition to Molson Coors today, that have pared back some of their DEI initiatives, at least as is written in certain portions of their corporate documentation, rather. You're seeing, again, kind of this 2024 movement after a few years ago of saying, you know what, maybe we should have been more aware of this. Now we're going to try to pare back on some of this. I want to point out, though, Molson Coors is, as you mentioned, not the same company as the Bud Light company, Anheuser-Busch, that did face that backlash from the Dylan Mulvaney transgender influencer cooperation in their marketing from a few years ago. That was another domino to fall that led to ultimately a lot of these companies pulling back here.
So Molson says that even though they're rolling back the DEI push, they're still going to make sure that their suppliers are representative of the company's consumer base, which is diverse. So how do they do that? How do they thread that needle?
Yeah, well, I mean, really what it was is that previously to this change, they had specific goals that were kind of codified, as I mentioned, in company documentation. Now they're saying that it's not necessarily going to be mandatory, but that they're still going to try to pay mind to that as they try to find suppliers. Again, what we're talking about here are suppliers in their chain, where they get the aluminum from, how do they source the barley, all those types of things. So again, they're saying we're going to pay attention to this. It's just not going to be written into any sort of documentation within the company. You're seeing a very similar thing at companies like, for example, Starbucks, where they did pull back some DEI bonuses related to executive compensation, but broadly speaking, still want to make sure they're representative across the company, Hallie.
Brian Chung, thank you very much. Appreciate you walking us through it. When we come back, why prosecutors want an American woman living in the UK extradited back here to the U.S. Plus, where tourists found loose parts of an ancient Roman arch. It's going to surprise you. So let's talk about this unorthodox, to say the least, new move from the president of Venezuela. And listen to this. He's announcing this year, Christmas, December 25th. It's going to start in October. A new date for Christmas from Nicolas Maduro. Watch him on local TV.
In honor of you, in gratitude to you, I am going to decree an early Christmas for the 1st of October. Christmas starts on October 1st for everyone.
It does? In Venezuela, apparently. Christmas will be in just a few weeks. What is up with this from Maduro? Why is he doing it? Well, it seems to be a big push to try to bring down tensions in his country because of what you're seeing here on screen. A ton of protests over this very contested presidential election. NBC's Valerie Castro is joining us now for more. It is clearly, Valerie, a pure political play from Maduro here in a very conspicuous manner. Right, taking this super popular holiday that everyone loves that is tied to December 25th for a reason and saying, no, it's October 1st now. What, does he think that's going to work or help?
Apparently, Hallie, he does. It looks like he's doing this to garner support. And as you mentioned, there have been weeks and weeks of massive protests since the election that he declared himself the winner. And during all of those protests, there have also been mass arrests. More than 2,000 people have been arrested by the government. That includes journalists, politicians, and aid workers. Just yesterday, the government announced an arrest warrant was issued for the opposition candidate, the man who ran against Maduro, Edmundo Gonzalez. He has been in hiding for the last several weeks and hasn't been seen since. But Maduro now announcing that Christmas will, in fact, this year be in October. Christmas in Venezuela is usually a time when government workers get their Christmas bonuses. So, again, this could be a way of trying to garner support, shore up his support. It also could just be a power play to say, look, I'm the guy in power. Christmas will be when I say it is. He says he wants to bring in a season filled with peace, happiness, and security. Hallie?
I mean, okay, so when's New Year's? I mean, there's like a lot of questions around the functionality of this against the backdrop of what you've described, Valerie, here, right? An enormous amount of tension, drama there, and it's coming as the State Department now says it's looking into a member of the Navy, the U.S. Navy, who was arrested in Venezuela last week and is still being held. How does that tie into what we're seeing in this country right now?
Well, it certainly adds to all of the tensions. We know the U.S. just seized a plane that Maduro owned. They say it was purchased illegally in the U.S. As far as that sailor is concerned, the Pentagon really hasn't released a lot of information. They say it was an unauthorized visit to the country on personal business. That service member was detained last week. The State Department really not releasing any other details other than to say they are monitoring the situation and the identity of that service member has not been released. Hallie?
Valerie Castro, thank you very much for that. NBC News covers hundreds of other international stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our teams around the world have done it for you. Here's a look at what they're watching in a segment we call The Global. Out of the UK, prosecutors say an American woman drugged her children before killing them and then ran away to Britain. Police arrested Kimberly Singler in London last year, days after her children's bodies were found at a home in Colorado. She's fighting U.S. attempts to extradite her back to America, saying the crimes she's accused of come with an automatic life sentence with no parole. Her legal team says that kind of sentence goes against European human rights law. Out of Indonesia, Pope Francis meeting with thousands of Catholics in Jakarta today. You can see dozens of nuns greeting him. This is at a cathedral there. Remember, this is part of the Pope's longest trip he's ever been on, and the one that's furthest away as well. He's 87. He's in a wheelchair. He's had health issues. After Indonesia, he's expected to go to Papua New Guinea. Out of Italy, an ancient Roman arch getting fixed after a lightning strike caused parts of it to come loose. Officials are still trying to figure out just how structurally damaged it is. Tourists apparently found pieces of the arch 10 feet away. They flagged officials to it. The arch dates back to the year 315. Back here at home, we're learning tonight that the former first son is starting college in New York. At NYU specifically. Yes, Barron Trump is heading there as they start school this week, according to his father. And the former president's 18-year-old son represents a big voting group that Republicans really want to lock down, which is partly why Mr. Trump and his team are leaning into what's been dubbed the maniverse, the universe of men, specifically younger white men, a strategy that could help Mr. Trump win the White House for a second term. Garrett Hake explains how.
Today is going to be the most important stream I've ever done, first of all.
When former President Donald Trump was interviewed last month on Aiden Ross's show, he said it was his sons who tipped him off to the streaming star.
They told me about how big Barron.
Yeah.
He said, Dad, he's really big.
Barron was right. That segment got hundreds of thousands of views on the popular live stream platform Kick, over 2.5 million more on YouTube. But it's another group of young men the former president is trying to impress.
You can't vote for Kamala and be a real man.
Some are calling it the bro vote. Trump drawing support in large numbers from young, mostly white men ages 18 to 29. The Republicans hope will have a major influence in this election.
They really focus not on the policy, but on the personality.
Team Trump knows it and is leaning in.
There's a lot of social dogma about what it means to be a Trump supporter on a college campus, and I'm doing everything I can to helpfully mobilize my friends.
Trump has shown that he's able to run the country better than Biden has.
For their parents, it may be Tucker Carlson or Sean Hannity, but this generation increasingly gets their information from social media on everything from the economy to the border.
I hear like how many of families it affects. That's what I see most about on Twitter and Instagram.
This is a group that has come of age during COVID, where they spent a lot of time online, on social media. They were hearing echoes of Trump's version of masculinity on one side and conspiracy theories, government not doing their job.
Online juggernauts like the Nelk Boys, popular with young men, have evolved from hyper-sexualized, prank-only content to political commentary, drawing huge numbers of eyeballs. Following his felony conviction in New York, the former president's first appearance, a UFC fight. It's also where Trump created his first TikTok, debuting on the platform he once promised to ban. Shortly after, he appeared with Uber YouTuber Logan Paul, tapping into his 23 million plus subscribers in a conversation full of catnip for the faithful audience.
Unidentified aerial phenomena in the sky. We don't know what they are. Do you?
It's very possible.
Former President Trump's show of strength following an assassination attempt also resonating with his base.
This situation completely made him invincible.
And this year's RNC tailor-made to amplify Trump's bravado. But for all of the former president's popularity among young males, it's also highlighting a growing gender gap. Recent polling from the New York Times Siena shows in 6 swing states, young men favor Trump by 13 points. Young women favor Vice President Harris by 38 points, a 51-point gap. And the Harris campaign hopes the vice president's running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, a former teacher and football coach with 24 years of service in the National Guard, may counter Trump's appeal with young men. The Trump campaign betting it's not enough.
You ever been in a fist fight, Mr. President?
Probably not.
To win the fight for the votes of millions of young men.
All right, Garrett is joining us now here on set, and it is a very clear strategy, right, by the Trump team based on who he's talking to. Looking at just this week, Lex Friedman, heavily male audience there. Talk through the gender gap dynamics here, because the Trump campaign is looking at similar numbers that we are.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, first of all, the focus on men is very specific, and it's not male voters even. It's a universe of men who they think don't even care about politics in general, but they think if they did care, they'd probably like Donald Trump. That's
and show up to vote.
Yeah, exactly. If they can turn them into voters, that's why the celebrity focus matters. That's why just even being spotted ringside at a UFC fight is useful to him. There's been a lot of reportage on this and the idea that this gender gap is probably easier for Harris to improve her numbers with men than it is for Trump to improve his numbers with women. Why? The bigger issue, abortion rights. Trump is, the architect of the end of Roe. He's very proud of it. It is a huge negative for him with women. And when you look at some of this polling, some of the most pro-choice or most in favor of abortion rights segments of the population are actually young, single men. And the theory is that if that issue can get brought in front of men, Harris can do better with men. There's just no path for Trump with young women, and he's not really trying. They've made no effort on this so far, and they're basically running out of time.
Garrett?
But if we see him on Call Her Daddy,
I was
going to
say, if he ends up with Alex Cooper, Alex Earl, then it would be a very different story. Garrett Hake, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Coming up here on the show, Katy Perry defending her controversial collaboration on this new album. Why it might be hurting her comeback. Next. Katy Perry tonight responding to her new controversial collaboration, working with a music producer who was accused of rape. Listen.
Look, I understand that it started a lot of conversations, and he was one of many collaborators that I collaborated with. But the reality is it comes from me. The truth is I wrote these songs from my experience of my whole life going through this metamorphosis. And he was one of the people to help facilitate all that, one of the writers, one of the producers.
So the guy that she's talking about here, Dr. Luke, remember, he settled a lawsuit with another singer, Kesha, last year after she accused him of rape. He has denied all the allegations. Now, Luke has produced some mega hits for Perry, songs that I know you know, California Girls, Teenage Dream. She brought him back for her new album, which is supposed to be kind of a big comeback for Katy Perry. The lead single debuted at number 110 on Spotify's top streaming chart, and then it basically fell off the next day. Some critics say fans may not be listening because of her work with Dr. Luke. We've reached out to his team for comment, but no response. Chloe Malas is joining us now. Talk about the reaction here from some fans. Could it be that this Luke collaboration really is why Katy Perry is not like in the top 10, top 50?
It could be, Hallie, but it also could be because the music video for Woman's World got a lot of heat, a lot of criticism. This is Katy Perry's 6th album. It's due out on September 20th, and it's getting a lot of criticism. Rolling Stone had a headline saying, could this be like the biggest comeback flop of all time when it comes to that song? And in that music video, you know, she's poking fun at female empowerment, and on one hand, she's like, you know, kind of channeling Rosie the Riveter, and on the other hand, she's throwing her boobs in the camera. And so fans have said, you know, this is not an example of female empowerment, but could it have to do with Dr. Luke, like you point out? I mean, it was a very big deal when Kesha sued Dr. Luke in 2014. This went on for 9 years. It was supposed to go to trial. You know, like you said, Dr. Luke denying the accusations, Kesha claiming that she was drugged and raped by him when she wanted to get out of her music contract with him. And yes, you know, and it was supposed to go to trial, like I said, and it settled before it went to trial. Now, you know, obviously Katy Perry has worked with Dr. Luke before. Like you said, they've had a string of hits together. But was it in poor taste to bring him back? I mean, some fans on social media are saying that they won't listen to the album or her music anymore because of that.
Was it surprising that she responded publicly to this backlash?
I mean, it's something, though, Hallie, that people have been talking about. It's the big elephant in the room. And obviously, Dr. Luke has been, you know, this is a big deal, right? Like I said, it's been going on for 9 years with Kesha. It dominated the headlines at one point in the music industry. And the fact that she is such a famous artist, to bring him back, one of the most famous, to work with him again since those allegations, you know, it was something that she had to address. And obviously, doing it on the Call Her Daddy podcast, it's a massive platform and a way to reach a lot of younger folks in her audience that might not have followed it over the last 9 years.
Chloe Malas, we're glad to have you covering this story for us. Thank you very much. Still to come here on the show, the NFL's big bet to try to protect players from head injuries. So will it pay off? That's next in The Original. To tonight's Original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And you know that this is the start of football season, right? So for the first time, the NFL this season, is letting players wear these things. They look like helmets. They're guardian caps. It's like this extra protective cover. The idea being, right, give another layer of protection to the head, try to stave off serious long-term brain conditions like CTE. Here's the question, though. Will players actually wear them? Our Sam Brock has more.
Football, it's America's game, with the biggest crowds, the biggest place, and the biggest hits. But this season, the NFL is taking additional steps to protect its players from the impact of all those blows, allowing them to wear guardian caps during regular season games. It slips over a helmet and softens the impact by up to 33%, according to the manufacturer. The question now, will the players actually wear them?
This is a guardian cap.
Colts tight end Kylan Granson plans to.
All it is essentially a little extra padding on the exterior of the helmet.
And he's hoping his stance rubs off on others.
prioritize your safety because, it's a hard game. It's hard on the body. And, there's life after football.
But some other players in the rough and tumble world of the NFL have scoffed at the idea of extra protection. One player writing on X, "These caps make no difference." Another simply saying, "Ew."
Do you think the primary pushback from people is just it looks weird?
Some of it definitely is. It looks kind of silly to them. My health takes precedent over aesthetic and look or comfortability.
Guardian caps first appeared on the practice scene in 2022, the NFL ultimately requiring them for most positions, but there was no option to wear one in a game until now. The NFL says it wants to lower the frequency of major blows to the head, as medical experts fear the long-term impact of all those hits, like CTE.
CTE stands for chronic traumatic encephalopathy, a degenerative brain disease that starts while someone is an active athlete getting hundreds or thousands of hits to the head.
The progressive condition can cause a long list of symptoms, from depression and anxiety to aggression, memory loss, and dementia. A recent study found it's not just concussions that cause CTE, but cumulative hits over the course of a career.
We think the Guardian cap's doing two things. One is that the additional padding is limiting the amount of force that's actually going into the brain. And number two, they slide on the surface of the helmet, dispersing some of that energy.
The NFL reports a 52% drop in concussions during preseason practices among players wearing the Guardian caps. Though Nowinski notes there's no peer-reviewed study yet published that backs up the league's data. The NFL has also been funding the development of new helmets with extra protection, which have tested so well, according to the league, they can be worn instead of Guardian caps in practice. But experts still warn there's no silver bullet.
There is always a risk that the better the equipment gets, the more players feel invincible and use their head as a weapon.
For now, Granson says the decision to wear a Guardian cap for pros and younger players alike is a no-brainer.
I think it's definitely important for safety starting early.
And Sam is joining us now. So let's pick up on that thread, Sam, starting early. There are some high schools who are giving options for those athletes to wear Guardian caps too, right? What's your sense, based on your reporting on this, of how widespread it could end up being, not just at the pros, but at the lower levels as well?
Sure. So my sense is, Hallie, let's start with the prevalence part of this first.
Yeah.
Boston University CTE Center studied 376 brains of deceased former NFL players. 345 of them were diagnosed with CTE. That is a 91.7% rate. It's shocking. Now, look, that's also self-selecting. You have family members who are donating brains on behalf of their loved ones, or football players who perhaps knew they might be suffering. So that's one slice. But what the study does say is that this is not about a couple of different hits. It's about a lifetime, as you suggest, from youth, really, of small incremental hits that add up. Now, right now, there are no requirements on the youth level or the high school level for these Guardian caps. You don't really see them. But I will tell you, just anecdotally, we did a story on this about a week ago, 6 or 7 high school and middle school students who died recently, within a matter of weeks after playing football, from football-related activities. A few of those were traumatic brain injury-related, at least appeared to be. The father of one of those boys said he wants to see Guardian caps at the lower levels, and he wants to see it right now before a single other person dies. Some of the evidence is inconclusive at this point. The NFL has published its own data on this. There's not sort of peer-reviewed studies that have said this absolutely reduces head injuries and concussions, but if we believe that what they've collected so far is accurate, yeah, it could absolutely make a difference from the lower levels all the way on up to adults.
Definitely something to watch this football season. Sam Brock, thank you so much for that.
Sure.
That does it for us for this hour. More coverage picks up right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app, or follow us on social media.